Well, as always, let me try to get this feed out there. Also put this on silent. Right, ahlan wa sahlan. Let's ahlan wa sahlan, people. Let me just share this. Sorry, I'm going to share this onto my other page, which is also a good opportunity to say that, I mean, it reminds me to say, if you've, make sure, because I use both my pages, so to keep up to date, make sure you do like both my pages and follow them. So if I'm ever posting something on one, it reaches you on both. So let me just, almost done. Right, just gonna share that. Somebody asking a question. Alright, so people, mi gente, what's going down? What's going down? Right, Bismillah, Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa, وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم. Right, the people, Facebook family out there, alright, how's it going, ahlan wa sahlan bikum, bienvenidos a todos. Swagatam, people. Finally, it's Monday again. Ahlan wa sahlan wa alaykum assalam. All of you tuning in. Right, ahlan bikum. Right, welcome. Click the like and the live share feed. People, share the live feed. Get it out there. Let other people join in. Can you explain a bit on why prayer is a gift? Why is it a gift? Because we can be close to Allah. It's an easy way to paradise. Nice cut, shukran. The cut was due. It was overdue. Had to go get that done. People, do not forget your nasib min ad-dunya, your portion of the dunya. Look at that. Allah. Best way to practice the ha. It's either with an ice cold drink or with a hot tea, and to go to practice the get your tajweed in place. Let me just rest that, you see, on my, once again, on my Shuddh Hindi dictionary. What am I doing? This is disrespecting. No, I love Hindi, but it could be seen, it's not disrespectful. Kya kare? Kalyug hai, Kalyug. It's the final end of times, people. End of times, Kalyug. Satyug to guzar chuka hai, Satyug. Right, so people, do you intend on doing any events in Manchester? Sure, why not? Why not? Right, so people, we've got a lot that's gone down in this last week, and a lot of interesting questions have come through. Gonna take a look at them. Those of you tuning in, ahlan wa sahlan bikum, welcome, khush amadid. Click like, share the live feed, get it out there, and any questions feel free to ask. Robin is asking, is it freezing? I hope it's not freezing. I hope it's not freezing. There is a storm around, but yes, salam. I hope people that are, if there are any victims, to the hurricane, what is it called, Ophelia or something. But you know, may Allah grant them security and ease. Ameen. It's all good. Right, so let's get started. Let's get started. Can we sleep in stomach? I don't know, Mike Khan Ji. Can you sleep in the stomach? ये कैसे अजीब सवाल कर रहे हैं आप? What kind of a interesting question is that? Can we sleep in the stomach? I don't know which way to take that question really, considering this is live and unrestricted. I don't know what you mean by that. So try as long as it's halal, don't worry about it. I'm joking. Can you sleep on their stomach? On their stomach. Unke I'd hope you don't sleep on the stomach. Yaar kham kha. Right, so why do you want to kill the other person for sleep on the stomach? Acha, you mean on your own stomach? Acha. Ab main samjha. Now I understand. Ahlan wa sahlan. Ahad is in the house, people. My madrasa codee. My co-defendant from the madrasa times is online in the house, people. Sheikh Ahad from London. Yes, you can sleep on your stomach in the what do we call that? The prone position, the face down. You can sleep like that. You can sleep on your back. You can sleep however the hell you want. You want to sleep like a star, sleep like a star. It doesn't really make a difference. There's no such thing as any way to sleep that is more better than another. No such thing. So don't buy into, by the way, don't buy into these, you know, sometimes there is a lot of good that some of these jamaats do, that go around, take people, you know, teach them Islam. But one of the problems, Mazari's in the house. Hi, Mazari. Ahlan wa sahlan. Right, so, but one of the issues that some of these people do, Janab Ali, Ahlan wa sahlan, is they say, oh, this is a particular way to sleep. This is how the Prophet used to sleep. He used to go like this and go like this and put, and kind of like cramp his legs and knees. And this is all nonsense, people. There's no such thing as how the Prophet used to sleep. Okay, he was just slept. Sleeping is not an Islamic way of sleeping. Okay, you just go to sleep. That's all. Take. So as long as you all know that, right? Are we good? Está bien? Yeah? Right, so let's move on to the next question. Do you feel like the Ummah has reached a stage where they focus too much on little things over the major aspects of our deen? Amr al-had. Alright. Al-amr had jiddan. The matter is indeed, it's critical. Right, so yes, I do feel in some ways, I don't know whether it's, I think people may have always been like this to some extent, but because of social media and the world becoming a global village, we're seeing things a lot more, and people get to communicate with others a lot more, so they get to bicker, and that's all we see. Did the Prophet sleep on his right side? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. No, the Prophet just slept naturally. There is no such thing as an Islamic way or method to sleep. So to sleep on, I know when many years ago when I went on Tablighi Jamaat, they taught me that the way to sleep is by putting your one hand under here, and I can't remember now, but on your right hand side and face the Qibla presumably, and all these kind of things. It's all made up, people, right? It's just a fairy tale. The thing is, not as a social, economic or national one, thoughts on this. That's an interesting one, Muhammad Ahmed. Let me come to that. Let me just finish this. Right, so They get this as in this, there's sometimes a lot of narrations that have been passed through and stories, and people have them in books. How did they get them isn't necessarily so fascinating. It's just you've got hundreds of stories transmitted about the Prophet, hundreds and thousands of them. The question is, which are authentic? That is the question. Okay, many people have said many things about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, doesn't make them authentic. There was a question that is, Islam began as, I forgot the question, that it didn't begin as a social or economic or a national movement. It began as I forgot what they said it did begin as. Mehwish has asked a question about riba. I want to come to this actually, so hopefully remind me. Ustad Jalal is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. I'm just trying to, it began as a religious movement, that's the question. It didn't begin as a social. So the question is, Islam began as a religious movement, not as an economic stroke national stroke social movement. What are my thoughts on this? My thoughts are that's not exactly, I suppose it could have some truths to that. There could be some quasi-truths in that statement. Although I think Islam, when it began, the main purpose behind Islam is to connect a person, connect creation to the Creator. That was the aham kind of aham kind of maqsad, the kind of main objective. Ustad Jalal saying he was trying to hide in the corner. We got eyes on you, Ustad. We got eyes on you. Don't worry about it, right? So now the point is that it is true that the connection between the creator and creation is the most aham, the most important, right? It is es muy importante, people, right? It's too important, right? This connection, but it came to be relevant. Religion did come to be relevant, and that is actually one of the most kind of puzzling conundrums of the 21st century, is that how does religion remain relevant? And this is actually it's actually a difficult and tricky one. And I've quoted the hadith I'm calling it a hadith, but it's an athar, a tradition from the companion who, when he was sent as an ambassador, he said that Allah sent us to take the creation from the worship of the creation to the worship of the Creator. And he said, لِنُخْرِجَهُمْ مِنْ عِبَادَةِ الْعِبَادِ إِلَى عِبَادَةِ رَبِّ الْعِبَادِ. And this was the first core tenet of the kind of umbilical cord, if you like, the first core, the first heart, the heartstring, everything, the pulse of this deen, to eradicate the cobwebs of superstition, okay, to get rid of them, right, to eradicate the cobwebs of superstition, to emphasize ain't the word, to flood insaniya with tawheed. A tsunami of tawheed was to surround insan and to connect him with the Creator. And that was tawheed. And tawheed was to destroy, eradicate, uproot superstitions, wizardry, things like belief in any kind of nonsensical entities, mythologies, to kind of completely get rid of these and to free you from these shackles. That was the first and foremost important thing. The second element that the Alaykum salam, ahlan wa sahlan bil qawm, those of you just joining in, click like and click share on the live feed. Get it out there, people. Get yourselves blacklisted. Let people know. See, that is the test, isn't it? When you share one of my feeds, you're going to get blacklisted. So that's the no. So this is the one of the most important things that Islam came for. And the second thing, listen to what the companion said. He said the first part, لِنُخْرِجَ الْعِبَادِ مِنْ عِبَادَةِ الْعِبَادِ إِلَى عِبَادَةِ رَبِّ الْعِبَادِ. Right, to Luca Brasi, let me come to that question. I'm just finishing this point. The second thing, he didn't stop there. He said, وَمِنْ ضِيقِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَى سَعَةِ الْآخِرَةِ. We have Ustad Daniel Abdullah Hernandez in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan. Ahlan, bienvenidos. Ustad, right, welcome. Right, so the thing is that glass of Coke, no session is complete without this glass, I tell you. I read that. What was it? He said, Abhi to aur jam tootenge. Abhi aur jam tootenge is sharab khane mein. That many more glasses and pints will yet be destroyed in this wine house. That mosamo ke aane mein, mosamo ke jaane mein. That whilst these, and what he said, हर धड़कते पत्थर को लोग दिल समझ लेते हैं, उम्रें बीत जाती हैं दिल को दिल बनाने में. वाह 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 वाह. That people seem to take any beating stone and they consider it to be a heart. That it takes a lifetime to turn a heart into a heart. Allah, 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 Allah. Right, so people, coming back to this point, I want to, before I lose my train of thought here, that you see the Sahabi said that لِنُخْرِجَهُمْ, that we take them out of مِنْ ضِيقِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَى سَعَةِ الْآخِرَةِ. Right, we take them from the, you see, this had to be in this world, otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. It had to be in the dunya. You see, and this is where many people mistook this understanding. They thought that this is speaking about the akhirah. This is not speaking about the akhirah, otherwise it will be useless. That لِنُخْرِجَهُمْ مِنْ ضِيقِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَى سَعَةِ الْآخِرَةِ, once they're dead. It was فِي الدُّنْيا. من ضيق الدنيا إلى سعة الآخرة. And how would we do that? How would we make the restrictions of the kind of claustrophobic nature of this dunya become so vast, like the infinite vastness of the akhirah? And that is through things like bringing social realities, bringing social justice, bringing rights to people, whether the elderly, the young, the sick, the disabled, men, women, children, all kinds of people, whether it's the employee, whether it's people of diverse ethnicities and races, bringing this reality to them, making Islam relevant, teaching them how they ought to be. This is how their world would have become so vast. So that is, in my understanding, what the relevance, so it does, Islam does, the deen does have relevance in the social, economic and whatever, the whole life of a person. But it's true, it's not, Islam is not an economic ideology. It is not a political ideology, but it has certain structures to kind of guide people, and as long as it's like anchor points that they will be kind of safe with. They can do their own strategies, they can govern themselves in their ways, but they have these safe anchor points, so the ship doesn't kind of lose its way. It stays in safe harbor, put it like that. Let's move on to another question. Somebody had asked, I think Luca something, somebody needs to do something about their moons. Istuchi, man bra like that. Real men don't wear bras, estuchi. I don't know how to pronounce your name, right? So, wow, ¿qué estás diciendo? What are you saying? It doesn't make any sense to me. Right now, let's get right. I'm gonna come to Riba, but let me just answer this question on how is prayer a gift? You see, it's a gift in the sense. It's a difficult one. I mean, it's not. It's simple, and I suppose it could be difficult in wording it precisely. That it's a gift in the sense, if I was to be very kind of utopian or ideal, well, it's a gift in the sense that it connects humans to their creator. It gives you a Junior, that's a good question. It gives you a kind of connection. It's a gift in the sense that, you see, Allah has set it in a certain way that it, by its ritual nature, it will become habitual. And it will cling to the psyche. So you will stay upon it. And it will always be a constant feed. A lifeline. An unbroken lifeline to Allah. Okay. So I think it's like that. It is unquestionably important. I want to say something here. This is a question. So this is a question which I've been asked on several occasions. Junior, that too is a good question. The more immediate question. I just remembered a dialogue from Game of Thrones then. I obviously can't quote it here, so right, where he says that is a problem. The more immediate problem, however. Right, so we have to understand something. When I say, why do some elders get offended when wearing a t-shirt in a masjid? Right, that is a question, but the more immediate question. When I've said things like Islam brings a solution, or it does offer certain anchor points to things, I want to be clear on something here. I want to give a caveat kind of situation. I want to give a kind of... I think it's necessary. Es muy necesario that I explain this. Right, it's very important. Akideen saying, Aman, you should cover your aura. Me, I should cover my aura. Something like this. Or do you mean one of those like... Right, so the point is, look, no, this is a serious point for a moment, people. Serious. Let's go en serio. Let's get a bit serious. Right, when people say Islam does offer these kind of solutions, or it offers anchor points, make no mistake. I'm going to say something which might sound a bit weird. Right, I'm going to say something which might sound... And that, Your Honour, was where the misunderstanding began. Will that work out as my defense? Right, the thing is that, look, oh, Ustad Suleiman Van Al, ahlan wa sahlan, tasharrafna, people, Al-Asil, right there, those of you who are not connected with Sheikh Suleiman Van Al, super slick Sheikh Van Slayer Al, right, in London right now, from mainland Europe, right here. Do connect with him, reach out to him. An amazing person in Tafsir as well. Right, so this question, coming to this question, I was saying that I'm going to say something which might sound, from Belgium, sorry, not just mainland Europe, but Belgium doing it. Right, so I feel it's important to highlight something, and that is that, look, Islam is not necessarily the solution to your problems. That's going to sound weird, but I want you to understand what I'm about to say. People think sometimes, if I'm upon Islam, like if I start to practice Islam, right, then I won't have problems. Whoa, somebody, Quilliam Foundation, sell out. Okay, there you go, block. Right, so now Look, Islam is not the solution to your problems. I'm just being honest with you. You will still have countless problems in life. Sometimes people think that, look, okay, right now I'm not practicing Islam properly. So I'm not fully praying, I'm not doing certain things, but the day I do start doing that, because I will have a connection with God, therefore I won't have problems. That is not true. Okay. You will continue to have problems right throughout your entire life. Okay. If you look at the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was a paragon of mercy, sent to mankind, rahmatan lil alameen. The Messenger of Allah had his fair share of problems. And he was the best of people to us Muslims. Right now, you as a Muslim, yes, you will have a personal connection, and through that connection you may feel a sense of tranquility, a sense of serenity, a source of peace. You may feel these things, and that is true. You may get an understanding of, and I know this is a question, I'll come to this later on, a kind of barakah in life. And yes, some problems may disappear. Absolutely, they may disappear. I'm all with you. They may disappear. Muhammad Joseph Arid. Behave. Natty. You're trying to stir up the whole knack issue here. Come on, behave. Right, so you may have a sense of, is that Sheikh Zaim, Mufti Zaim Saab? Tashrif farma hai, ahlan wa sahlan. Right, teh dil se. Khush Ahmadid. Right, so, but you will not have a problem-free life. Let me clarify that. So if you have depression, for example, and depression, you know, unfortunately people do suffer from things like this, and I do advise anybody who is suffering from things like that to seek medical advice, medical assistance on these matters, to get a diagnosis, right, and to, you know, proceed like that. Do not underestimate medicine and medical intervention. Please do seek specialist intervention, right? But do not think that, oh, maybe that you will start practicing Islam, and because you start to become focused, alhamdulillah, you are removed from your depression. Do I speak Bengali? No, I don't speak Bengali, but I speak Urdu right now. But that said, many people will not be removed from depression just because they have started practicing Islam. So don't take that as an act of failure. The reason I'm highlighting this is because then people think the religion has failed them. Because they think, okay, Allah, why now? Okay, before I used to be a harami. Right? But now I've become upon the halal way. So why now am I suffering? Ustad Zishan, ahlan wa sahlan. Zishan is in the house, people. Right? So, but people think, look, before I used to be wrong and upon sin and doing things, and we're all sinful, but I mean, people might think I wasn't practicing Islam, I was a harami, but now I've become good. So why have I still got problems in life? You will always have problems in life. You may have less, maybe because you've better coordinated your life, maybe because you've planned better, maybe because your ability to cope with them is better. But just because you start praying, do not assume that you will now have a problem-free life. Because when people do that, sometimes they think, oh, you know, why has God failed me now? You know, why have you forsaken me now when I am praying? I now read the Quran. Why have you forsaken me? Allah hasn't forsaken you, but that was never the deal. So I think it's important to highlight that, okay? That said, I do feel that inshallah you will find a source of serenity and inner peace, at least, in a connection with Allah. But look, but that connection with Allah, by the way, is a lifelong journey. And I've explained this before, that journey will always be turbulent. Look, if you today have doubts about Allah or about Islam or about, don't worry about it. As I say, don't worry about it. You see, in the words of the Messenger of Allah, that is the purest of Iman. Okay. So doubting things, having things like this, being riddled with, it's just being real. You know, somebody said that, what's this nonsense that you're saying that, oh, a faith with doubts and stuff like this? Because there was a quote that that I said, and some people had shared it as a status, that a faith, an insecure faith built upon truth is better than a secure faith built upon lies. And this kind of bothered certain people, and they said, what kind of nonsense is this? You're you know, people have strong iman and you're trying to confuse people and stuff like that. I'm just being real, that's all. If you have a very strong iman as a person, then alhamdulillah, mabruk, you know, that is, I'm really happy for you. But many of us are just normal human beings. You know, we will go through life. Sometimes your iman may be strong, sometimes it may be challenged. And that's normal. There's nothing to be kind of embarrassed about. It's not a sense of failure. This is not a sense of failure. Ibrahim alayhi salam asks Allah in the Quran, and this is why I think Ibrahim alayhi salam is a key prophet for us. A key prophet. You know why? Apart from him being called our father, huwa sammakum, that he named us Muslimin in the Quran. He says, huwa sammakum muslimina, that he is your father in the millah. This whole tradition is named after him. But you know something? It could be named after Adam alayhi salam. We are all his offspring. But Ibrahim alayhi salam. Why Ibrahim? Ibrahim alayhi salam constantly throughout the Quran is calling us to the voice of reason. Constantly. He is saying, look, that, oh, do they not, afala taqil, do they not think? He says, Ya Allah, how do you do this? You know, arini kayfa tuhyi al-mawta. Show me, how will this happen? I don't understand. He says, oh, is the sun our Lord? Is the moon our Lord? What about this? What about this? You know, la uhibbul afili. You know, when the sun sets, when the stars disappear, he says, yeah, but if it was a God, how could it disappear? Now, he's reasoning with people when they worship statues, and he breaks the statues and he puts the axe on the larger statues, and he says, bal fa'alahu kabiruhum hadha. He says, you know, when they say sami'na annahu fatan yuqalu lahu Ibrahim, that it's a young man who did this, his name is Ibrahim. He says, but look at it, he's holding the axe. Why don't you ask him, the statue? But he knows where this conversation is going to go. He says, "Ma lakum la tantiqun?" Why don't you speak today? So he was bringing them to question, to reason, and we as an ummah have been named after him, Ibrahim alayhi salam. So I think there's nothing wrong in, and I say this because I'm asked sometimes by people about that are struggling with doubts and stuff like this, and I think, don't worry, celebrate it, embrace it. Don't become obsessed with the doubt though. Just try to move on concentrate on more important things. Have I ever traveled to Mauritania? I haven't. Inshallah, and do I know of Murabit al-Hajj? Everybody knows of Murabit al-Hajj through the legend Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. But inshallah, may I someday inshallah meet him. Right now, so I just wanted to clarify this. And also, linking in with depression, never tell somebody that is depressed or something like this. By the way, I'm not the best person to advise people on depression and stuff like this, because I, like I say to people that, come on, pull yourself out of it, what's wrong with you? But never tell people like that, that this is because you're lacking in Iman. Ever, never, ever say something like that. And I've seen sometimes Muslim scholars respond like this, and I think that's highly irresponsible. Because if they weren't depressed before, they're definitely going to be depressed now. So you just kind of lock them in, gridlock them into depression. Right, so Azim, Arif, how you doing, brethren? Nice to see you. Shukran, Azim, brethren. Eyes good, man. Eyes good. Shukran, shukran. Right, so let's move on to some other questions. I did get asked quite a few questions as well. Let me oscillate, fluctuate between these. Right, those of you just tuning in, people, if you'd like, if you don't be tight-fisted with your likes, goddammit, you can like. Siham, I've got no idea what you're writing. Siham, Hift, oh, it must be another language. Right, so if you post your questions, click like and share the live feed. Get it out there, people. Get it out there. Abid, are you embarrassed of me? Don't get me wrong, I'd probably be embarrassed of me as well. Right, so let's get to this question. Let's go through some of these and I'll move back and forth. Right, thank you for the reminder. It says on here something to look forward to. Shukran. Wine cooked with meat, impermissible, or does the wine burn away? Azka, that's a good question. And be shredded to pieces, Mazhar says. Yeah. Yaar, zara hosla rakho, yaar. Have a bit of... try this. Being blacklisted ain't that bad. Who are you? I got no idea. Okay, is that an existential question, Maria Kashaf? Who are you? That's the question. Who am I? Right, so wine, I would say stay away from wine. That's my fatwa. Ustad Sahal Tobias Anderson has joined. Ahlan wa sahlan, Ustad Sahal Tobias, all the way from Sweden. People studying currently in the Qarawiyyin in Morocco. Ahlan wa sahlan bik, Ustad. Right, so I would personally say stay well away from wine. However, there is an interesting fatwa, and it's by Sheikh Uthaymeen, and it does reflect the fiqh discussion in general. Sheikh Muhammad Ali de Silva, ahlan wa sahlan, tasharraft, Sheikh bihudurik, right, people? This is Sheikh Muhammad Ali de Silva in the house, an honor, one of the dons of Birmingham right here. Right, so I would say stay away from things like wine and stuff like that in food and this kind of stuff. Although there is a discussion, and Sheikh Uthaymeen's got a clip on it. It's a few minutes, it's on YouTube, where he's got this discussion on ma askara kathiruhu fa qaliluhu haram. That he said that this hadith, that which a lot of intoxicates is a small quantity of it haram. Now, I'm sorry, a small quantity of it is also haram. What is this hadith talking about? Now, he says this hadith is not speaking about unlimited quantities. It's speaking about the quantity you're drinking from. And I know that this did trigger some debate. So there was quite a few, it got controversial. What he was saying is, if there was, let's say this pint of something wouldn't intoxicate, then drinking some of it would be okay. But if drinking 3 or 5 pints of something would intoxicate, then... So what he said is that what the hadith was speaking about was the quantity being drunk from, not an unlimited quantity. It is an interesting, controversial kind of fatwa. And it feeds into what the Hanafiya had originally taught. Right, so, no, sorry, somebody's asking why am I quoting Sheikh Uthaymeen. I'm quoting this because it's an interesting discussion on spirits, which he has on YouTube, and so it's triggered a whole debate. Why it's triggered a debate? Because somebody in the modern time, and that too coming from a very Puritanist perspective, the Salafi perspective, has said something like that. The other element of the discussion here is that alcohol can evaporate, and therefore is this istihalatul mahiyya, that if the chemical properties of something changes, the ruling changes, and that is been the general understanding of many ulama in the past, especially the Maliki madhab and the Hanafi madhab and other ulama as well, the Shafi'iyya too. But I would still go with the understanding that stay away from wine, okay, in your food. I'm sure you can find plenty of substitutes, okay? Right, next question. Right. السؤال التالي. One question, what is the best book about tafsir of the Quran to read and why? Solomon, is it Haram Dunya has asked an interesting question. Let me just get to that. This is, you see, there's so many books to read in tafsir. I don't know what angle to take really, because every mufassir kind of has his own angle. So some of them do things like they take a lughawi, a linguistic perspective. Some of them take a fiqhi perspective, like let's say, I don't know, you could have ahkam al-Quran by Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi. It takes a very fiqhi perspective. You could take something like Tafsir al-Nahas, which is a very lughawi perspective. You could have mixture of an aqidah, kind of strong philosophical discussions like Fakhruddin al-Razi in his tafsir. Ibn Ashur, you could have like 30 volumes of his tafsir, covers almost most things. Block Kaskas, okay, I'll look out for Kaskas and then I'll block him. Right, so that's right. Okay, so I would say it depends. It's difficult. I try out a few different tafsirs, okay, and whichever one fits best with you, alhamdulillah. Can you explain the part of Adam sinned? I thought prophets are free from sin. The verse that Asa Adamu Rabbahu Faghawa, or Waghawa, Asa Adamu Rabbahu Faghawa. Right, the thing is that Adam, he disobeyed Allah. You see, the ulama here say that this particular verse isn't speaking about sin like that. It's speaking about mistake, because the whole concept of sin didn't exist back then with Adam. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. What exactly is Allah intent? I don't know if you can say intending. What is the focus of what Allah is highlighting here? In my understanding, it's, you see, we've had this discussion before about Adam alayhi salam and the forbidden fruit. I kind of go with the understanding that it wasn't fruit that Adam alayhi salam had. Right? Okay, if you're gonna troll, you're gonna get blocked. Okay, those of you just tuning in, if you click like and share the live feed, get it out there, people. Right now, I've blocked them. Right now, so my understanding is that Adam alayhi salam was not prohibited from a particular fruit per se, which is, a lot of people do go with that understanding, and that is the kind of biblical, although in the Quran it doesn't make it clear what it exactly is. Right, so in my understanding, this is the understanding I've kind of arrived at, and through certain different listening and thinking, and is that what the prohibition was of sexual intercourse. Okay, now, and this was a metaphor that the tree, the way people refer to things like your ancestry, your tree of ancestry, the tree of life, this is what tree was kind of metaphorical for. So and that's why one of the verses in the Quran about Adam's story says, that should I not show you shajarat al-khuld, the tree of eternity. Jawad Qurayshi, ahlan wa sahlan tasharraft. Right, that this was the tree of eternity. Why would a tree of fruits be called a tree of eternity? And okay, some people kind of try to interpret that in different ways, but what I'm saying is, in my understanding, and even when you look at the verses that Shaitan is saying, that ala adullukum, should I not show you, should I not guide you to ala mulkin la yabla, that this kind of kingdom that does not go away, and eternity, should I not guide you to how you can live forever? Now Adam alayhi salam, in our understanding, already knew that he would not live forever. Like, he had a sense of fear of death, like this kind of mortality, his own mortality, although, but he had this understanding that he wouldn't live for. So what is this eternity about then? What is he being guided to? And in my the way I see it, it's this, that he was being told to kind of refrain from sexual engagement. And this was almost like an act of worship / test. Why? Because the way, as for example, do we have a parallel for this? Yes, like let's say in fasting. If a Muslim is fasting, during certain parameters, there is to be no sexual interaction, no sexual intercourse. Why would this be the test, if you want to call it a test? Because the instincts that Allah had given Adam, the sexual instinct was so powerful as it was, that this was a test to see. And it truly, you see, Adam, this is why he kind of, yes, Shaitan, in the verses, Shaitan is kind of like luring him in, but this instinct in itself is so powerful that he kind of gives in. And then this makes sense that, look, because the verse says, when they come to their senses, when they taste of this fruit, they then start covering themselves due to their nakedness. Now that makes sense that they were naked like that. And that once they had reached a climactic kind of euphoria due to the sexual intercourse, after that they came to their senses and covered themselves with clothing. Because the hadith, the verse mentions that akhadha yakhtifani min, that they started to take from the leaves min waraqil jannah and cover themselves. Now, because they felt that, oh, this was, what have we kind of done, maybe we should. This is my understanding of what this means. The other understanding is, no, it was an actual fruit and he ate the fruit but then became naked. That to me doesn't make much sense. Although you can have that understanding as well. I'm not saying nobody can have that understanding. That is a very common, that's the biblical understanding that is out there anyway. But I'm going with the metaphor. And Ibn Abbas seems to have gone with a metaphor as well. He said that it wasn't a fruit, but it was knowledge. So I'm saying that it was a metaphor, and I'm going with this understanding that it was of intimacy, sexual intimacy. And that then gives rise to human progeny. Humans are born from there. And this is why Allah says, وَلَقَدْ أَهِدْنَا إِلَىٰ آدَمَ, that we took this covenant with Adam, فَنَسِيَ وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا, but he forgot, and we did not find in him great determination. Because that is true, that in man, in these instincts, to kind of stand against instincts is incredibly difficult. And in the hadith, it mentions Nasiya Adam, فَنَسِيَتْ ذُرِّيَّتُ, that Adam fell short and forgot this kind of covenant, and so did his offspring fall short in this matter. That, you know, وَجَحَدَ Adam, and Adam denied. This is a beautiful story. I mean, I take it more as a metaphor, but it's an amazing story nevertheless. You see, because one of the characters, I mean, character ain't the right word, but one of the personalities that I find absolutely adorable is Adam alayhi salam. I have this kind of fascination, overwhelming fascination with Adam alayhi salam. Obviously, he's our father, all of our father. So I think I'm justified in my fascination with him. But I feel that he really embodies everything about us. And it's, you see, it's, because in this hadith, there's this understanding that, Adam alayhi salam saw his offspring. How did he see them? We don't know. In this hadith, anyway, whether this is a story or a metaphor, or whatever, or it's a vision he's shown them. But in there, he's told that, and he looks and he thinks, wow, that these are my offspring. And he sees Adam alayhi salam, he sees Dawood alayhi salam, and he's particularly fascinated by him. And he says, wow, who's this? And they say that this is your offspring, one of your offspring, and his name is Dawood. And he says that, wow, how long will he live? And the angel that's in this, whether this is a vision or whatever, but it's the kind of gist of this story is what's important. And the angel tells him, and he says, whoa, that it? Oh man, he feels for him. He thinks, you know, my offspring. And he says that, can he have like a portion of my life gifted to him? Now, I don't take this to be literal, even if this is sahih. And he says, give him 40 years of my life. And so they say, okay. So what happens is, according to this narrative, that Adam alayhi salam is approached by the angel of death. And this is, like I'm saying, it's just an illustration, okay? So I don't take this to be literal. But, and when he's approached, he says that, why have you approached me? I'm sure I've got many more years to go. And they say that, yeah, but you had an agreement to give a portion, 40 years of your life to Dawood. And he says that, hell no. And he says, Jahad. He completely denies it. He says, I don't know what on earth you're talking about. So the hadith says, Jahada Adam fajahadat dhurriyatu. That, you know, Adam, that he outright denied things, Allah, and his offspring continue to outright deny things. And this is my kind of fascination with Adam alayhi salam, that he so embodies everything that we have. I think it's amazing. It's amazing anyway. Let's go on to some of these other. And I love that verse, seriously, wallahi, I totally love that verse of the Quran, which I read, that وَلَقَدْ أَهِدْنَا إِلَىٰ Adam, that we took our covenant with Adam, فَنَسِيَ, and that he forgot, وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا, and we did not find him we did not find him to be of great determination. Just insan. I mean, to me, in that weakness, and and I love the way Ustad Osama Khanna, in his, may Allah grant him ease. I mean, I'm very saddened, just as are we all, to hear of the unfortunate news of Ustad Osama Khanna being diagnosed with ALS. But I heard his lecture, recent one, and he spoke of that our human strength is actually in our shared weakness. That we all have this shared weakness. And just tying that back on to this, that you see that this, in this not having, Adam not having this great determination, this kind of human weakness is our great strength. I see that as a strength, that to kind of celebrate about being, and it's amazing that you see these kind of verses. I actually totally love these kind of verses that, like that Allah says, what's that خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ مِنْ عَجَلٍ, that insan has been created out of this hasteness, this kind of haste, and Allah says, سَأُرِيكُمْ آيَاتِي, I will show you my signs. فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. Stop being so goddamn being so stop throwing a fit about wanting them so suddenly. Don't worry about it. Have some, calm yourselves, people. Calm yourselves. And this is the verse, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, absolutely. But I see these verses as something to celebrate about human nature. Right, yeah, don't be so eager that this, don't be so eager, Allah is saying. Shukran, kid heads. Right, so, فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ, don't, chill out. Allah is saying, I will show you that. But this is, and, as a story, once again, this is a story. I don't take it to be literal, and don't think that hadith are sahih anyway, but there's a narration that Allah created Adam, and it was like, I mean, the hadith says that it was a Friday, but I think these things are all metaphorical. But it mentions that as he had life infused into him, however the creation or whatever, this is only, to me, this is only a metaphor, the story. But and I don't even think it's sahih, but if it is sahih, it's only metaphor. But it's a fascinating kind of depiction that as he had life come into it, because it mentions that shaitan comes up to him and he kind of taps. He says, what is this thing? He says, خُلِقَ أَجْوَفْ, that this is hollow. There's nothing to this damn thing. What? And as Adam has life infused into him, it says that he doesn't have it complete. That as it comes halfway, he sits up. And he wants to get up, but he can't get up. It isn't in his lower half. And he says, and he looks, and he's told to be patient. That the life, it's gonna come to the rest of his body, and he looks, and in this metaphor it mentions that it's gonna be sunset, and he says, Ya Allah, before the sun sets, do you mind, and some people mention that in the tafsir of this ayah, that Allah says, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ مِنْ عَجَلٍ, that insan has been created out of haste. That's أُرِيكُمْ آيَاتِي فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. Don't hasten, don't be so eager, god damn it. Chill a little. So let's move on to have you ever bust the sleeves on your shirt? I wish. Okay. I said I was going to discuss the issue of riba. Okay, so I want to discuss this issue. Who's Rashid? He's a storyteller. Islam by the practice of storytelling. Yeah, stories are important. Stories are important. Right, okay, so, right, coming to this issue of riba. Right, so I'm going to need some of you It's done, people. It's done. Don't worry about it. Is that the devil sign or is that the devil? I don't know. Whichever one. I'm trying to provoke people anyway. When people get agitated. I just love pushing their buttons even further. It's like sometimes people will make annoying comments and I'll delete them, and they'll say, "Oh, Mufti Abu Layth, why did you delete my comments?" And then I'll delete it again. And I'll say, because I can. Why did you do it? Because I can. Right, so, right now, coming to... Okay, this is going to need a bit of focus. Riba. Right, okay. Now, Riba is an incredibly, in my understanding, an incredibly complex, yet it's an overclaimed subject. Like too many people feel that they actually understand Riba. And it's become symbolic. This is the problem. That the concept of Riba has become symbolic within Islam. Right? Ahlan wa sahlan, those people just tuning in, ahlan wa sahlan. If you'd like the actual... Sorry, I get distracted. Some people are just trying to correct my drinking. If you'd click like and share the link, share the live feed, get it out there. It's an interesting and important point on Riba. I'd like many people to benefit. What's life if not lived? And absolutely, what's life if not lived on the edge? That is something I say. Right now, I need us to understand something here. This is slightly complex. I'm going to need you to bear with me. Okay. You can all be my murids. Ahlan wa sahlan. Yeah. Right now, an absolute love coming right back at you, Murad Ahmed. Shukran, shukran. Right now, the thing is, look, listen. I need you to kind of focus on this. Riba has become symbolic. Now, we need to take a step back. Religion to many people is just symbolism. Okay, religion is symbols. This is why to many people, and this is a fascinating point, and I was just having this discussion last week with a sheikh from Birmingham, Sheikh Sajjad. I don't know, those of you that know him, an amazing person, spelled S-J-A-A-D. And we were just discussing this point that religion is symbolic to many people. Okay. It's only about symbols. That's how they identify with religion. Hence, I'm not considered religious to many people. I mean, I'm not saying I am by their definition of religious, but because I don't carry any of the symbols that they would identify religion to be. So to them, religion is symbolism. It's iconic. It's through icons and symbols. Now, and that will be partly through things like dress, through attire, affirmations, through rituals, through, I suppose, but rituals you can't always see, like praying, I suppose, but you can't always see people praying, but you could see the way they're dressed, you could see the way they have a beard or wear hijab or do certain things, and this is what it's all about to people, symbols. Now, from these symbols like domes, minarets, I mean, taking into consideration that none of these things existed like that, like domes or minarets in the time of the Prophet, but these symbols have today come to represent Islam in the minds of many. So, Riba has become one of those things that is symbolic, that it is seen to many people to be an important aspect of Islam. They may not fully understand what riba is, but they understand this to be an important aspect. So I don't know what it is, but they think whatever it is, it's incredibly important. The other thing is that they think riba, I mean, they understand that riba is something Allah has declared war on. فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ min Allah. That Allah says in the Quran that He has declared war. يَمْحَقَ اللَّهُ الرِّبَا وَيُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ. It's been highlighted as something distinct to sadaqat, and Allah destroys riba, as in destroys, as in, you know, it has no barakah and Allah kind of detests it. This is the understanding that God detests usury. Now, أَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا, the verse in the Quran that Allah made transactions, He legislated and authorized transactions, but He prohibited riba. So, what is this riba? Riba in the Quran is mentioned as three things. Okay. Sorry, not in the Quran, in Islam it's mentioned as three things. In the Quran, riba is just generally used as riba, and it is usually referring to just one thing. But people will say all three. Okay, fine. These three things are riba. You've got riba al-jahiliyyah, what is called riba al-jahiliyyah, the riba of jahiliyyah. You have riba al-fadl and riba al-nasa. These are three categories of riba. Riba al-jahiliyyah is the riba that it's a kind of a tyrant, like a very draconian, highly oppressive loan shark kind of riba, where that's the best way I can describe it. It's what pre-Islam, the kind of riba that was going on. So people would they would require wealth. So I require a certain amount of gold. Somebody gives me. Now obviously I struggle to pay it back. There will be compound kind of demands made, so you will give me this much, this much, this much on top, and each time I can't do that, that continues to be compounded, and then it's usually followed by I could be killed in return, or worse, sometimes being killed is an utter tragedy, obviously. Obviously it's an utter tragedy. And what's that what's that poem where he says what in tabqa tufja bifana'il ahibbati, it's no something like it's a famous poem, man. He says wa fana'u nafsika la abalaka afja'u. That if you do survive, you will come to see, like witnessing the death of many loved people will be shocking to you. And he says, وَفَنَاءُ نَفْسِكَ لَا أَبَالَكَ أَفْجَاءُ. But surely you dying is indeed a greater tragedy. So I'm not kind of denying that it's not a great tragedy. Dr. Ahlan wa sahlan, and ahlan wa sahlan to all those just coming on late. Do click like and share the live feed. I'm trying to discuss the topic of riba here. So people sometimes, obviously they would kill you, but they would sometimes torture you, enslave your children, drag your children away from you, torture them, your wife or wives back then, or whatever it is. And you know, it was the whole highly oppressive kind of context to this usury which contained this concept of riba, this kind of loan shark culture, but to the power of 10. Now, then you have the second category of riba, which is riba al-fadl. Riba al-fadl is where we are transacting with each other, but we are taking more than what we're giving. Okay, now this is done between categories. Now this is strange because the hadith mentions, this is Sahih hadith, which is in Sahih Bukhari, it's in Sahih Muslim, in many of the other books, that the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that al-dhahab bil-dhahab wal-fidda bil-fidda, that gold by gold and silver by silver, wa-tamru bil-tamr, and dates by dates, that وَالْبُرُّ بِالْبُرِّ وَالشَّعِيرُ بِالشَّعِيرِ وَالْمِلْحُ بِالْمِلْحِ, and wheat by wheat and barley by barley and salt by salt. These 6 things are mentioned. I almost did 7 then. That's like in the fiqh books when they say, okay, these 5 things, but they only mention 4. Right? Or say 3, but mention 5. Right? So these 6 things in the hadith are mentioned, these categories. Now, the Prophet said that if you're trading in these, now it's strange that, you see, what the hadith says is that they must be of equal proportionality. The question here is, why would you even trade in equal proportionality? Like, why would I give you 1 kilo of wheat for 1 kilo of wheat? You wouldn't. So, and then the interesting thing is, it mentions riba nasa. Hand to hand, exactly, I'm coming to that. But if you are to delay one of the payments, that with the exception of gold and silver, so with the exception of currency, if you are bartering and you are to delay one of the goods, so you're taking it now and you're collecting the other thing so I'm taking something from you and you can, so I say, give me the 1 kilo of dates, you can take 2 kilos of wheat, but you can collect that from me tomorrow. So it's not instant, it's not hand to hand. This is declared, you see, it's declared riba. Now this is the shocking thing. It doesn't actually make much sense. That why, okay, if it's the same category, maybe it's just a statement. Maybe the Prophet is saying, it should be like 1 kilo of wheat for 1 kilo of wheat to kind of, this is an emphasis to draw away kind of any oppression. But then the Prophet says in the hadith, فَإِذَا اخْتَلَفَتِ الْأَجْنَاسِ. But if you're trading between categories, like dates for wheat, فَبِيعُوا كَيْفَ شِئْتُمْ, sell as you want. You don't have to be 1 kilo for 1 kilo. مَا كَانَتْ, as long as it is يَدًا بِيَدٍ, as long as it is still hand in hand. The moment you delay one of them, it becomes riba. This is called riba al-fadl. Now the hadith actually includes gold and silver too, which would mean it's impossible to buy anything on credit. Anything. But what the scholars did is they all did an ijma', whatever that means, but some kind of a consensus, that the scholars came to an understanding that gold and silver is exempt from this hadith, even though the hadith mentions gold and silver in the beginning. So they said, we're going to exempt currency, but the remaining 4 will stay. Now the question was, what is this riba even about? So there was never any agreement on what riba was actually speaking about. When Allah says in the Quran that أَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْءَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا, that al-bay', Allah has made transactions halal, all transactions halal. This alif lam is either lil jins or lil istighraq. It means either kull al-bay' is halal, or jinsul bay', the category of transactions are halal. وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا, and made riba haram. This alif lam in riba is not kull riba, because riba simply means an excess. And everybody agrees that not all excesses are haram. In fact, most excesses are not haram. So alif lam in riba is referring to a type of riba, or a riba that I've got in my mind, what we call al-ahdu dhihni. How do we know this? So for example, let's look at all the hadith. So for example, the hadith of the kharras. So you could, in the time of the Prophet, this was a common practice. They would go to dates on the trees. The dates whilst they're still ripe, but they hadn't been plucked. and kind of taken off. And they would say, okay, I'll buy all of those from you for these grapes I've got here. And they would just guess them, estimate them. And they had experts to do this, and they were called kharrasun. And these people, the kharras, were like experts, so they would say, and they would allow them a margin of error up to a third. So for example, I'd look at that tree and I'd say, right, for that tree, I estimate there's 10 kilos of dates on there. So I've got 10 kilos of dates here, you can take them and I'll own that. So that's, and this was common. And there was guaranteed excess in this transaction. There's no way you got it down to the exact date. Never. But it was okay. The scholars say that the excess could be up to a third of the entire quantity. The other thing is, none of the scholars agreed on, there has been no agreement on riba to start off with. What riba is actually even about. Okay. I'm just giving us an understanding. So Umar ibn al-Khattab famously said that I wish the Prophet ﷺ passed away, and I wish one of the things he explained was riba. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu in Sahih Muslim clearly denied any riba in delayed transactions. No, sorry. Sorry. He denied, let me correct myself. He denied any riba except in delayed transactions. Right, he denied any riba except in delayed transactions. So as long as we're trading hand in hand, you can do whatever you want. I can take double, less, whatever I want. He didn't. This was Ibn Abbas, this is in Sahih Muslim. So a whole entire category of riba, Ibn Abbas completely denied. The other thing is, why on earth is, when the categories are different, are we not allowed to delay the payment? Why are we not allowed to delay the payment? Now, sorry, why are we, like, if we're bartering, if I'm taking wheat from you for dates, why am I not allowed to say, collect the dates from me tomorrow? Why does it have to be hand in hand? How does that become riba? I mean, I can understand if I was exchanging gold for gold, that maybe tomorrow the value of gold would change. If it was fluctuating that suddenly. But why with bartering if the categories are different? So Ibn Ulayya and some scholars are the only scholars who said that that's okay, like this doesn't make any sense. Now I'm coming to this about the riba from a bank. Now, this is setting out the premise. This is important to understand. Right now, I asked almost every senior scholar I could imagine in this day and age to explain this to me. And wallahi, not a single, I mean, they could explain it and they could give an understanding which I could arrive at anyway, and which is, you know, it's not even, I mean, that, okay, that maybe some exploitation could come about, but nobody has explained. I've never come across a kind of thirst quenching explanation on why bartering, the delaying of one of the kind of products, is riba. It doesn't make any, like, it doesn't make much rational sense, okay, to start off with. Now, then the thing is, okay, these four categories are mentioned in the hadith. What about other things? What about, so for example, what about mobile phones? Nobody believes there is riba in mobile phones. Nobody. I could give you, this is a Samsung, I could give you one Samsung for 3 Samsungs. Nobody will call that riba. I could swap your house for another house, for 2 houses. Nobody will call that riba. I could swap your car. They disagree. Now, when it came to what does riba operate in, the scholars massively disagree. There's never been any agreement to start off with. So the Hanafi madhab looked at this hadith and said, well, riba based on wheat, barley, dates and salt, this is to do with scalable and weighable products. So riba is in weighable and scalable products only. The Maliki madhab looked at this and said, no, this is to do with food. And the Shafi'i said this is to do with food. The Maliki said, no, but this is a particular type of food that is storable. So these are products which you can store for almost a year. So they're not perishable or easily perishable items. Hence, there is no such riba, according to the Maliki madhab, in things like fruits. I could trade apples with you, and I could take more or less. The Maliki madhab says that's not riba, because there's no riba in fruits. But according to the Hanafis, that's riba. Why? Because you scale them when you sell them. So there was never a clear understanding on what riba actually is. Everybody agreeing that on several things, huge things, there is no riba. Like, even though linguistically it does exist. So, like the mobile phone example is a good example. Like swords in the past. I'll give you one sword for two swords. I'll give you this shield for this many shields. Right? Why am I explaining this? I'm going to make it relevant for us in a moment. But I need to explain this to show that there was never from the offset any clarity in what riba was actually speaking about. It's important to understand that. Right, now, okay, moving on from all of this. Right. What about we need to come to what bothers people, because people today don't barter generally. They're not going to swap apples and oranges and do things like this. But they want to buy a house on mortgage. They want to take out a loan. Are these things riba? These things are not riba in the Quranic sense, in my understanding. Yes, they may have some similarities in the sense that there is some excess of repayment. So you're seeing a similarity, like that element, and you're assuming, oh, because of that similarity, this is the Quranic riba. It's not. Why is this not the Quranic riba? Because everything is different. Now, first of all, when you go to a bank to take a loan and they give you this, they give your mortgage, they buy the house for you and you repay this house over, almost a lifetime. And obviously they've tied in inflation and stuff like this. This concept as a concept did not even exist back then. This thought of, first of all, of banks doing this, corporations did not exist. Banks did not exist. This thing of, I'm giving you money, I'm buying the house for you, you are buying it back, or you are paying me, did not even exist as a concept. Okay, to start off with. Whether we want to say that they are buying the house or they're giving you the money, I mean, they're doing it all, but okay, technically the money is on your name. It did not even exist as a concept. So back then in the Prophet's time, this was never happening. Nobody was going to one of the Ru'asa of Quraysh and people were saying, hey, right, people were saying, hey, will you buy me this house, pay me this much, and I'll pay you back over this portion. Never happened. This concept did not even exist. Okay, so let's take that as one element. The other element is we have to understand that why riba was made haram was because of the excessive, extortionate, loan shark culture that was diabolical. Because of that, riba was made haram. This today does not fit that. Right now, this today, right, you are not, like, nothing like that happens. You are operating within a greater framework. Okay, when you take out a mortgage, right, you are operating within greater legal parameters of commerce and of the banking structure. So for example, people say, yeah, but you pay back more. Of course, first of all, another point to throw in here, you are not the person taking the money, you are the person giving the money. Okay, no person in their sound mind would ever want to give back more than they took. But it's only because of a necessity that, you know, you don't have the money to start off with, so you're taking the money. Otherwise, nobody's going to say, yeah, you know what, I'll happily give you back more money than I took in the first place. Nobody happily does those things. So let's get that straight to start off with. You are not the person taking. This isn't greed. You are the person giving. Okay, that's an important element too. The other thing, like I said, is you are operating within a safe structure. This doesn't work like this. Isn't a loan shark culture. Like, if you cannot pay back your mortgage tomorrow, the bank will actually cooperate with you to pay it back because it's in the bank's interest not to seize the property. It wants you to maintain a long commitment to pay them back. Right? So, and people say, yeah, but the banks are... I'm not trying to justify banks and banking culture, but what I'm telling you is, let's juxtapose that with renting. You would have, if you rented a property and you couldn't pay, you would be evicted much easier. You'd be evicted after 2 months. Whereas with a bank, you would easily obtain up to 6 months to a year to repay that. It would cooperate with you, whereas a private tenant wouldn't. Sorry, a private landlord would not cooperate like that. The other thing is that even if you cannot pay back the money, let's say you cannot pay back your mortgage, right? If you can't pay back your mortgage, you can go onto a management program, a debt management program. You can go onto an IVA. You can declare yourself bankrupt. Bankruptcy only lasts for 12 months. And they don't even seize your essential assets. I'm just saying, like you would, so for example, a car, you would still keep your car. You would still keep all kinds of, so you are actually very protected. You are operating within these greater frameworks. So whether the bank is telling you these things, by the way, you can declare bankruptcy or not, it won't tell you that, but you are operating within that framework. The banks have a legal obligation to cooperate. They have a legal obligation. They can't do anything to you should you declare. So what this this program is sponsored by. But why am I saying this? Because in the Quran, when Allah declared war, that's not what was happening. That was tyranny. Why was it declared so harshly? Why was it rebuked? Because of the tyranny that was unleashed on the back of this. Now there's another point I'm about to say. Now this is an important point. I need you to focus. Tawajjo farmao. Tawajjo farmao. That is, people. This is now the icing. So that's some of the things I wanted to highlight. That first of all, look, riba, it's never been clear what riba actually meant to start off with. Secondly, there's been confusion all along in what kinds of riba are haram and ain't. There's never been an agreement. Thirdly, the banking today and loans and mortgages do not operate like that diabolical kind of, that barbaric loan shark culture. They don't operate like that at all. They do take back more from you. They have their versions of they're trying to tie this into inflation with some profit. Yes, they do that. But you have a greater safety net at all times. Now, the other key thing that I'm about to go into, and this is incredibly important, that is, people, we have to understand that the concept of commerce and economics has entirely changed entirely changed since the 18th century. The whole world, the world we live in today, and the way economics is perceived, the way finance is perceived, has entirely changed. And I need you to focus with me on this, right? Because some of you might just take this for granted and not appreciate what I'm saying here. Everything has changed, people. Everything. Industrialization and the rise of the kind of economic culture with it absolutely changed. Let's backtrack. The greatest and most successful story, I'm calling it a story, the narrative and discourse that human beings ever invented, the most successful story that human beings have ever created, right out of their imagination, is money. It is our greatest invention till date, followed by gods and kingship. Okay. These three things are the greatest human stories that we have ever had. Okay, ever. Right, so now let's human beings, by arbitrarily placing value on some objects, they managed to create a system, an imaginative system, by which they could trade. Trading is just a figment of our imagination. Ownership is just a story. You don't really, do we even own any? This is everything, this is discourse analysis, people. When you start to study discourses. Now, money, when we created money as in gold pieces, this has certain values now. What human beings did a few hundred years ago, they did the second greatest, they got that story and they gave it the greatest makeover. So it became money 2.0. They dematerialized money. Okay. Demineralized it. So it no longer elementized it. Okay. So now it became paper. But it wasn't just this amazing ability to turn that into paper, but the whole story that they spun around this. Look, stay with me. When the Quran was revealed in 7th century Arabia, money was finite. It was a fixed aspect. So, for example, if, let's say in Birmingham, there were 5 million gold pieces in Birmingham, that meant Birmingham, that's the city where I live, by the way, the heart of the UK, right? Now, Birmingham, let's say it had 5 million gold pieces. It would only have 5 million gold pieces. These gold pieces couldn't just double or triple. There could be some fluctuation, tiny, negligible fluctuation. So some other person leaves the town, some person comes, some person goes. But this is negligible. It generally has 5 million gold pieces. That's it. When I lend you, when you borrow from me 1,000 gold pieces, you're not going to pull 1,000 gold pieces out of thin air next month. They have to come from somewhere. Wealth is static. The only way Birmingham we can increase in wealth is if we raid another kingdom. So let's raid Manchester as an example. So Birmingham raids Manchester. Manchester has 5 million gold pieces, it drags that as part of their gold pieces. Now they have 10 million gold pieces. This is how kingdoms worked in the past. Money wasn't just pulled out of thin air. You had to, gold was finite. So when Allah says in the Quran that let not the wealth be dulatun bainal aghniya'i minkum, let it not just go round and round amongst the rich from amongst you, that's because that's all it was. Right. I've got nothing against Manchester, I love Manchester, but I'm just saying. So I'm giving an example, right? So now this poor person who's borrowed 1,000 or 5,000 gold pieces, he can't just pull them out of thin air. He has to go to another person to get them. If you are trading, it is the same thing. Money is static. Now, what the greatest trick, the next greatest trick that humanity did, Allah, was it de-elementized. It removed the element from money. It freed it. All of a sudden, money became paper. Now, you could give out money that you don't actually have. So, with this, you see, as people started to get more money than was actually there, they could do more things with that money. You see, now tie this in. Now hold that, peg that thought right there. Hold that and come back to another thought. With this, you had the rise of people like Adam Smith and his understanding of economics, his understanding of commerce. Now, in his books, amongst them, The Wealth of Nations, he speaks about, and you see, Adam Smith highly promoted things like, obviously, free trade, free markets. But there's a very important concept that he started to promote, and that was the pursuit of self-interest. You see, prior to Adam Smith, people were seeing this as just greed. That greed was a bad thing. So when the Quran was condemning Riba, in the time of the Arabs of 7th century Arabia, greed was just seen as an evil thing. But everything changes in the 18th century. You see, all of a sudden, you see, like, let me ask you, if you were to open a shop and I asked you, or you were to do business, why is this just being greedy? Is your business just about you and being greedy? You will say, and it may be about being greedy, but you will say, no, look, by me opening a shop, I'm creating jobs. I'm disseminating wealth within the community. I'm giving back to the community. I'm allowing trade within a community. I'm adding to the flourishing nature of a community. Now, believe it or not, nobody would have thought like that 500 years ago. Nobody. Now, it seems so common sense today, but it was impossible 500 years ago to even think like that. Nobody thought like that. You see, Adam Smith starts to write about the pursuit of self-interest. He says that, look, even if people are doing this for greed, but greed in the case of business is a good thing, because what it does is you still feed back where you live. You create jobs. You are still disseminating wealth in that community. So what happens in the decades and the centuries that follow is there is a shift in mindset. Imam Mark, ahlan wa sahlan, tasharrafna people. Imam Mark Manley is in the house. Allah, Allah. Right, a legend, rising star, absolute star from the US. So people, if you're not in touch, reach out to him and shoot away with your questions to him as well whenever you get a chance. Right now, we're just discussing the concept of riba. Now, Imam Mark, I know your views absolutely on the right, supporting the right to bear arms, right? So, but coming back to this, so the mind shift started to change. Another thing started to change, right? With this kind of thought of the pursuit of self-interest with economists. Adam Smith is a revolutionary kind of a person who wrote on economics and stuff like that, for whoever's asking me. Another thing that started to change was the promise of tomorrow being better than yesterday. Now, in the past, that was never the case. Now, this is another important ingredient. It was never the case. People in the past always felt that tomorrow would be worse than today and yesterday. So they didn't want to give you money. When you came to ask somebody to loan you money, they would not give you money. Because they felt, why should we? The chances are tomorrow is going to be miserable. It's going to be abysmal. There's going to be just raids and war and battles and diseases. And the promise of tomorrow was never optimistic. Now, with industrialization, that changed. So all of a sudden, we've got now, hold on to these elements that I'm giving you, these ingredients. So the pursuit of self-interest, the de-elementizing of money, right? The promise of a better tomorrow. And this promise of a better tomorrow catches on with the collective consciousness. So people start to buy into this. Once again, it's a shared imaginative reality. I'm not saying it's true. It's just a shared reality. No, I'm not on steads. Right, so this shared reality that people start to think, well, tomorrow is going to be better. Now, another element. The fact that banks were authorized to give out much more money than they actually had. Now, people might see this as a bad thing, but it allowed the community and societies to flourish. Now, let me just illustrate that for you. Look, here is a bank. I go to this bank and I put, let's say, I wish, make dua, inshallah, I become a millionaire. So I put 1 million in the bank. Right, pursuit of self-interest. Right, so I put 1 million in the bank. Now, here is another person. He decides this person needs a loan from the bank. So let's just say we're going to take, shall I take some figures? I'll tell you what, I'll use some of you guys right here that are just logging in as some live examples. So, we've got Hamad. How you doing? I'm going to use you as an example. So Hamad says, all right, I need a loan. I want to set up a business. So, right, what I'm going to do is I need £1 million from the bank. So the bank borrows, Hamad borrows 1 million from the bank. Okay, so he's got that. So Shakil has just joined and said 100 trillion. So, okay, Shakil, I'll use as the next example. Hamad, to set up his business, needs to hire out a contractor. So the contractor is, a contractor says that, fine, to do this job, I need 1 million, which Hamad has taken. So Shakil now takes that 1 million from Hamad, puts it back in the bank. Whilst working away at his bank, whilst working away on this project, Shakil realizes that, wait a minute, this project is going to cost double what I thought. He goes back to Hamad and says, well, sorry, Hamad, this ain't going to happen. You need to double your investment. Hamad goes back to the bank. In this, Feroza bint al-Farsi has said, I'm supposed to be poor. Okay, Feroza, you get to play the bank. So, Feroza, who's the bank, right? Hamad goes back to the bank and says, look, I need another million. The bank, being generous and capitalistic, says, no hay problema. Don't worry about it. Right? So the bank gives another million. Alright, so Feroza, you decide to give another million to Hamad. Hamad pays that million to Shakil, who, being a typical, let's just say, Pakistani contractor, was going to double the price anyway. He goes and puts that million in the bank. Right? Now, you see, I go, and then obviously Hamad now, let's say, owes 2 million to the bank. He pays back 2 million to the bank later on in time to come. But he sets up a glamorous business, and that starts to flourish. He has jobs. He creates jobs in the environment. The contractor brings his own crew. They have jobs. They work. They spend their money. This million that they've taken off, let's say Hamad, they're spending some of it. They're putting some in the bank. They're taking it out. They're spending. Me, I just originally just put 1 million in the bank. I'm taking out mine, whatever I want, whenever I want. But how much money did the bank originally have? Even if we say I actually had any original money, the bank only had 1 million. Yet it lent out 3-4 million. Certain laws allow banks to lend out up to maybe even 10 times what they actually have. The question here is, and I'm not saying sometimes they can't do irresponsible things, they can, and we all know what, with the kind of bust and everything, what happened. But my point is, you see, what this allows is for communities to flourish. So we are no longer, like, you see, wealth. And today, I spoke about another point. Today I said that we had money 2.0, where it was elementized into paper. Now, money 3.0, it was digitalized. All right. Money now created out of thin air. Just add, and look at the beauty by adding zero, which means nothing. By adding nothing, you create money. But what do you create? You create riches. You enrich a community. You enrich, because whoever has money, even if I'm as greedy can be, I'm still spending my money where people are using it. And those people are spending it. Like, it doesn't matter whether I'm as greedy as I want to be. If I start spending money, people somewhere are benefiting. But you see, unlike 7th century or 500 years ago or whenever, back then in time, money was static. If we had 5 million gold pieces in Birmingham, that's all we had. But now, money has no limits. Human beings for once can actually eradicate, and they have, to great, not globally, but to great capacities. They have eradicated poverty to great capacities, to great limits. They have afforded your common human being with immense luxuries. How did they do this? How did this even happen? How could this happen? Without these elements, these ingredients, without the ability of a better future, this hope, this shared narrative, without these structures, without this imaginative kind of money, without this kind of... So what I'm trying to say is the culture in which Quranic riba came, this kind of loan shark, immense, despotic, tyrannic, kind of immensely oppressive culture, loan shark culture, where money was finite and fixed and gold pieces, and if you didn't produce them, you were butchered or you were enslaved, or your family, your children were dragged away and kidnapped and sold off, and your wife and whatever, your relatives could have been your father, your brothers, other people bared the pressure of what you did. All of this was happening. And that's why Allah declares war on it. Because of the tyranny that was happening. That is nothing like banks saying, well, okay, you've got this house, we've sorted out the money for you, you take 25 years to pay us back. And should you not be able to pay this back, you have so many structures. You can go on debt management programs, you can declare bankruptcy, which only lasts for 12 months, and then you're free. It doesn't really, I mean, it affects your credit scoring, but you're not, nothing like that happens. The only similarity here is the fact that, okay, yes, they are asked, the amount of money repaid is more than the amount taken. But they are arguing that, look, obviously, to do that, one, we've taken inflation into consideration. Two, what they're saying is we wouldn't, look, they need, obviously, this whole culture, this imaginative reality works on motivation, which works on self-interest. So coming back to Adam Smith, they need that pursuit of some self-interest to be motivated to generate this greater dream of a more prosperous tomorrow. So what I'm trying to say, and then on top of that, you are not the person taking, you are not this person of greed saying, I want to consume people's money. You are giving. So when you do all of these things, when you take into consideration all of these elements, I do not feel that the mortgages or loans that are taken from banks today are what the Quran is speaking about. Now you can disagree with me, by all means. But in my understanding, this is categorically a different narrative. This is an extremely, immensely oppressive loan shark kind of culture that it's addressing. And it's addressing where it's not just even, I know loan sharks do exist even in this part of the world, but they're an extreme rarity, but with unlimited consequences. So that is what the Quran was condemning with so much kind of, with so much passion, if you like, when it declared war on riba. So I hope that's of some help in explaining why riba, in my understanding, does not kind of include these things. To me, a conventional mortgage, an Islamic mortgage, whatever mortgage are all the same in my understanding, right? I wouldn't necessarily view, obviously if people want to go with they want to go with what they call Islamic mortgages. To me, Islamic mortgages are they're just mortgages, like it's just a play on words. And I don't like that. The Maliki madhab has never liked that kind of attitude of trying to create loopholes and trying to kind of trick God. I don't like, I've got nothing against them, but I see it as just that. Like, oh, this ain't a mortgage, you're doing this, oh, you're buying it for me, you're renting it to me, I'm buying shares. Look, come on, everybody knows, just call a spade a spade. Like, you see, all I'm doing is I'm just saying, look, a spade is a spade. This is the banking system. Call it whatever you want. It's like Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an, in his time, he had an issue with one of the kind of neighboring dynasts. They weren't Muslim. And they were Roman. And there was one of the provinces refused to pay his taxes to him. And what happened is Sayyidina Umar said to him that we have this agreement. And by breaking this covenant between us, it's seen as a declaration of war. Would you want to do that? Why would you want to do? And that person said, look, I have no harm. I have no issue in paying you. He said that what it is calling this jizya, calling this an Islamic kind of taxation. I find it denigrating. My people insult me. So how about you can take this same money from me? It will come at the same time of the year. It will come in the same quantity. But we will not call it jizya. We will call it hadiyah. That this is a hadiyah. This is a gift. Okay. So this is what he said to Sayyidina Umar. Sayyidina Umar just wrote back to him, look, he said to him, send it on time. I said, done. I said, done. He said to him, send it on time. He said, hiya al-jizya, sammuha ma shi'tum. He said, it is the jizya. It is the tax. Call it whatever the hell you want. I don't give a damn. Like he said, just make sure it's on time. I like it. That's a style. That's the style, the swagger in the conduct. Now you see, look, I'm saying, look, let's just be real. The whole system has changed. Now you can call this Islamic mortgages, or you can call it this. That's one way of trying to bend and do gymnastics. I'm just saying, look, the whole day and age has changed. Where we live, the whole banking system has changed. I mean, there was no such thing as a banking system. The whole thing has been created. That there's a promise of tomorrow, there's this, there's that, there's safety structures. It's not loan shark kind of culture. So I don't feel it to be the same. So that's in my understanding, these things are not haram. I'm not saying people have to take them. I'd like to add another little icing on the cake. This is just my point. I'd just like to say that that I feel that as Muslims and as ethnic minorities, not every Muslim is an ethnic minority, and I'm sure there's many perhaps indigenous Muslims that are watching this, and you know, God bless you all and us all, right? But I'm just saying, as people in this country or in the United States or in Europe, I feel that we should invest in property, that we should have kind of assets, that we should. This is just my, you know, it's not even my 2 pence or whatever it is. You can just throw it, discard it, you know, as one of the sheikh said, banatu afkari, zuffat ilaykum, you know, fa imsakum bi ma'rufin aw tasrihum bi ihsan. You know, that's, as Allah says, you know, I reject it, I mean, leave it gracefully or accept it respectfully. I mean, whichever way you want. But this is just my thought, that I think we should have some kind of status. We should have some capital. And, you know, if you want to rent, by all means. I'm not somebody that is against that. I'm not somebody that's against Islamic mortgages per se, although I do, as the Maliki school and the Hanbali school are against, like they don't like this concept of hiyal. They find it denigrating, that you're kind of trying to trick God. But if, by all means, if you want to, if it makes you, you know, if it makes you sleep better, then by all means, I mean, do that. I mean, but to me, these things are the same. Taking out student loans, taking out loans to fix up anything, taking out car finance, taking out a mortgage, all of these things fit the same category here. Okay, I do not believe them to be haram based on all of these elements. And riba from the very onset or the offset has never had an agreement over what it ever meant anyway, to start off with, as I explained and went through elaborate detail. And I know that was a bit confusing, but it was important to show that this was never a clear-cut matter. So although the term, Muslims have symbolized the term, but they never kind of had a concept. The signified was always blurry. Right. Whew. Mufti. Shukran, Abida, shukran. Right, so I hope that's of... Right, Sheikh Noman Beg, Ahlan wa Sahlan people, that's Sheikh Noman Beg in the house from America, California, people. We were in the same, although at different times, but in the same madrasa back in Karachi, Pakistan. So that's awesome. So I hope that's been of some help. I'll tell you what, I'll take some rapid round kind of questions and then we'll call it a wrap. How does that sound? Oh, truth when it's too late. Jamal, you know what it is? Look, I'm not one. I don't buy into all this kind of... I'm just saying, and I'm not saying you're trying to do this, but I don't buy into this emotional guilt trip. Okay. To me, one of the greatest issues that Muslims have kind of... Why we're in facing some of the greatest challenges is because of what I call the fallacy of the deification of ahkam. That people have thought that ahkam in Islam are God. They are not God. Okay. The ahkam in Islam are, you see, in my understanding, objectively speaking, are not sacred. The vehicle they came through is sacred. So the ahkam was simply a solution to people's problems. They were not sacred per se. It's just the vehicle, which was revelation, was sacred. Now this is the important thing. Now if ahkam were important, then why did different prophets have different ahkam? Why was this haram for one people and this halal for another people and this there and this? If ahkam, how could it be that pre-eternally in God, if God had an, his objective was, I know that I want alcohol is such an evil, then why did he make it halal for all these other people? It doesn't make any sense. He could have declared it haram for everybody. And this gradual abrogation makes no sense. Makes no sense. Abrogation only makes sense within the same community. To say the Jewish people had this halal for them all their lives and we have it haram makes no sense, because we're not a continuation. I'm a different human being. So that makes zero sense. So if this deification of ahkam is one of the core, the kind of spanners in the works, this is what has tripped us over. Like, we think that ahkam are sacred. The ahkam, yes, the overall, because of, you see, it's linked to sanctity through the vehicle, which is the Quran, is sacred, as it being the message from God, the revelation. Otherwise, the Quran can speak of anything. The Quran can speak about the devil. It doesn't make the devil sacred. The Quran can speak about yeah, absolutely, Doc. Dr. Rizwan just highlighting that there. Yep, that's correct. I did discuss that last week and mentioned Sheikh bin Bayya speaks about that. Now, so this, I just want to say, so emotionally, this guilt-tripping people, to be honest with you, in my perspective, and I could be wrong, but this is my perspective. I'm putting it out there. Imsakum bi ma'rufin or tasrihun bi ihsan. Take it respectfully or leave it gracefully. It's up to you. That I think, in my understanding, these things don't mean anything to Allah. Like, whether people do this or don't do that, or do this or don't do that. It's not that on the Day of Judgment, Allah, like somebody saying, oh, you followed this ruling and now on the Day of Judgment you're going to find out. I don't feel that guilt tripping works, because these things don't mean anything to Allah. Like, this is a ruling that was set about for a maqsad, for an objective. The ruling per se was never the ultimate aim of Allah. Otherwise he would have had it from the beginning of mankind. And it wouldn't have changed over time. So, and I'll tell you something else as well. This is a spanner in the works for many people who don't realize this. That, look, the Prophet, according to many of the madhabs and the theologians, the Prophet himself had license to legislate. And he had license to legislate. And so they call this tafweed shara. And this was not ijtihad, according to the Malikis and the Shafi'is and these people, that the Prophet himself had a license from Allah that he could give rule, and whatever he ruled would become the Sharia. Now that might sound, whoa, But it makes sense if you see things from this perspective, that the ahkam were only solutions. And hence, most the ahkam in the Sharia happen to just be practices that the Arabs were already practicing. So how do the legal system, punishments, all these things were things they were already doing. The diya, the blood money thing, this was already going on. The blood money thing and all this kind of stuff. But so why... They, you know, when they caught a thief, they were already cutting his hands. In fact, they were cutting his hands and both hands and sometimes killing him and sometimes... So Islam just restricted it to the least of them to kind of mitigate it and place a parameter, because they were already doing this. People were... This wasn't something that Islam introduced by any capacity. You show me the ahkam that Islam actually, especially socially, that it introduced, that nobody even had a concept of them. It didn't like that. It just placed parameters. So, and the hadith, that when the person says to the Prophet, after he explains the Hajj, and the person says to the Prophet, Afi kulli amin ya Rasulallah, will that Hajj be in every year? Am hajjatan wahida, or will it be one Hajj? And this is in, I believe it's in Tirmidhi or Sahih Muslim, this hadith. And the Prophet ﷺ says that, he says that hajjatun wahida, it is one Hajj, and he says, لو قلت نعم لوجبت. He said, had have I said yes to you, it would have become obligatory. Now, one way to understand that is, oh, because if the Prophet said yes, then Allah would have made it no. Okay, that's one way. The other way to understand is through this thing, what Subki and all these ulama have written, that this is called tafwid al-shara', that the Prophet had a license to legislate things. And he was legislating them as solutions to social problems. So what do we do as society moves on? These rulings should also kind of adapt to the social problems. So in my understanding, if Islam was to have been revealed, and I gave the example previously of in Sweden in the 21st century, in 2017, if the Quran was to come down today, then it wouldn't have been speaking about things like camels. It wouldn't have been saying things like, in my understanding, cut the hand off. Because these things wouldn't have been relevant in that context. So, anyway, so this is why I believe that ahkam are simply solutions to our how to get by in life. And we have a certain thing, and we respect it, and it's part of our tradition. And by submitting to that and recognizing that, there is a reward, and Allah rewards us. But there isn't this kind of blackmail, guilt-tripping culture that, oh my God, watch, you follow that easier opinion. When you get to heaven, I'm sorry, if you get to heaven, it's no problem. When on the day of judgment, Putar, on the day of judgment, God's going to be like, where's that so-and-so who was trying to take easy opinions? Get him here first. First, throw him in the hellfire to start off with. You see, that's not my understanding anyway. Go on then, the last 2-3 questions, rapid fire. What was the rapid fire? And I'll call it, is there anything? You see, I ended up spending a while on Riba because I just felt it was necessary. Can't really see. Right, somebody, there was a, right, okay, let's get, لَيَأْتِيَنَّ عَلَى النَّاسِ لَا يَبْقَى إِلَّا أَكَلَ الرِّبَى. Sure, I mean, yeah, sure, I mean, I get the hadith. Bowing to other people, good question, Dunya. Dunya, what a name. The whole dunya, right? So I'm not mocking your name, by the way. I'm just right. So bowing to people, in my understanding, is not haram when it's done out of traditions like that, like the Japanese tradition or things like this. It's just culture, and you understand that it's not worship, and they all know it's not worship. They don't think you start worshipping somebody when you do it. But if you introduced that in a culture where it was non-culture. Like if you did that in a Muslim setting, it would be seen as, whoa, people might think that's shirk. Okay. Now, but if you didn't, like I know in some cultures, I don't, obviously in Pakistan, not hardly, but in India more so, and I think in Bangladesh, they do like bailago and like touch the leg or the feet. Personally, in my understanding, I don't think that kind of stuff is shirk or anything like that. I think if people do it, they all know what's going on, so it's okay. But some people freak out and condemn them to hell and everything, but I don't think that's the right way. Right, articles of Vikings having Allah written on them. Noor, that was incredibly interesting. I did read that. It mentioned that the initial theory was that the Vikings were kind of taking these things on their raids from the east. But then they realized, well, actually, no, these were Viking produced. So it's interesting. Maybe they were adopting some beliefs from some Islamic beliefs. Maybe, inshallah. Guarantees, warranties on products, yay or nay. I believe guarantees and warranties are permissible. Because once again, this is not riba, by the way. This is to do with gharar. Gharar. Okay, this is what they call al-mukhatara, risk transactions. And because it's already set out and clearly determined, it's not an issue. You have to remember, most of the things that were made haram in the past to do with transactions, they write in the books of fiqh, were ma yufdi ilan niza', that which led to disputation, that which led to disputes and fights. Because nowadays you're not going to get into a dispute with a company over stuff. I mean, you could get into disputes, but you've got the prints and it doesn't lead to the kind of actual bloodshed that it did in the past. What is spiritual abuse punishable? Come on, spiritual abuse. I don't want to really go into all of this, but I just feel, look, when it comes to people's sins, everybody just concern themselves with themselves. Okay, I think that's what's important. Because throughout our lives, and it isn't just the present, throughout our lives, we have all, at some point, most people at some point have lied. Most people have verbally abused somebody. Most people have stolen. Most people may have deceived somebody for financial gain at some point in their lives. Most people may have made some haram sexual contact at some point in their lives. Most people have done these kind of things. Most people have maybe eaten something haram. Many people may have, I don't know, smoked drugs or taken drugs at some point in their lives, drank alcohol maybe, gambled maybe some point in their lives. Maybe everybody's done something at some point in your life. So if you're not doing it now, just because I'm not doing it now, maybe I did it before. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Go easy on the holier than thou kind of card. So I just say, look, preoccupy yourself with your sins. Don't lynch people for their sins, because, as there's a saying in Arabic, la tahtaqir ahadan. That do not, qad yakunu wali, that this person, maybe to Allah, that person is a wali. Maybe that person has such a connection with Allah. That it is interesting, wallahi, there's a hadith, and it's one which seriously touched me from the days of study. I remember our teacher, one of our legendary teachers, Abdullah Al-Mantaqi, and Sheikh Noman Beg, who's online, probably remembers him. He was an amazing, so animated. He used to always remind me of that guy from, the scientist from Back to the Future. He used to have this orange beard, like him, with these kind of large NHS glasses, big orange beard, and he used to have that jinnah cap, and he used to be so alert. But I remember once, he was talking about something, and he said, if it was up to me, I would do so and so. And then a few days later, that thing actually happened. And he came to class and he said, "Hey Baba." He used to have these kind of idiosyncrasies. He used to often say things like, "Hey Baba." And he said, "Inna lillahi ibadan, law aqsamu ala Allahi la abarrahum." That he said that indeed that there are some people, this is a hadith, there are some people that if they took an oath on Allah for something, Allah would make that thing happen even if it wasn't going to happen. So I tell you, look, you don't know, we don't know whose connection is how with Allah. Don't judge people for their sins, that's what I say. And I definitely ain't one to judge anybody, and so obviously people would definitely lynch me. They'd be like, just look at him, lynch. They'd be like, just lynch him now and we'll ask the questions later. They'll be like, we'll definitely find something guilty on him. Right, so, and don't give my siblings their half. Is that haram? You see, if you, Mawish, inheritance, people have a right to it. To deprive people of their rights is haram. Okay. Got a modernist interpretation of Layth. You haven't got a modernist interpretation of the nation of Layth. I don't know, because according to me, the Qawm of Layth were primarily destroyed not because of homosexuality. They were primarily destroyed for rejecting the message of God. And that's something that seems to be so over neglected nowadays. People think they were destroyed because of homosexuality. I don't think they were destroyed because of homosexuality. I think they were destroyed very clearly, the Quran mentions, for denying the message of God and denying the kind of things that miraculously were opened up in front of them. So, right, what size is your... Alright, people, I think, you know what, with that, let's call it a wrap. God, nail polish. Yes, I've answered this before. In my understanding, and this is, I've said this before, that doing wudu on top of things like nail polish, not that I've got any on. I only wear it on the weekends. Right, so, but in my understanding, nail polish or nail varnish, I don't know, whatever you call it, right, it's fine doing wudu on top of these things. You do not need to remove it. It does not need to be a halal version. It's absolutely fine. Having things like extended eyelashes, as you can see, as you can see, you like that, all that. Sometimes I think, is that natural? When sometimes, you know, you know, these kind of feminine, when people are like, women are, is that natural or is that just put on? And they do all the extra blinking, right? So the thing is, things like eyelashes extensions, or I don't know, whatever it is, batting their lashes, whatever. But I just think, right, so is all of these things, you can do wudu on them. You do not need to remove them for wudu, right? They take, whatever's under them takes the ruling of the batin. I base that on the way, and I believe this would have been like Imam Malik's understanding, because he, when he was asked clearly about removing the ring for wudu, and he said no. And they said, what if it's tight and water doesn't go underneath? He said no. And they said, does he have to move the ring around to let water penetrate? And he said no. And think about it, a ring is just a luxury. You don't need to wear a ring. And what about everything else? Why don't we have to wash what's under the beard? Why don't we have to? Because it's batin. It's the underneath. And these would take the same ruling. I've got Ustad Shawkat Waraij, Ahlan wa Sahlan, just wrapping this up. Right, so you wearing jewelry, is that considered haram? Just saying, nope, according to, there's everything by default is halal unless proven otherwise. And to prove it haram, you need clear-cut evidence. Clear-cut evidence. Right, so just to clarify. So, unless you can prove otherwise, and men in the time of many of the companions, in fact, a companion, the Prophet gave him glad tidings about a bracelet that he would get from Persia. And said to him that glad tidings for you on that day when you'll receive the bracelets of Kisra. And Umar radiallahu anhum in several riwayat made him wear them. So alright people, I'll leave you. What does my neck... What does it say? It's just gonna trigger controversies, more controversies if I say what. Let it be now, let it be, I think. Right, so Right. Right, people. Right, so mine can. No, right. Okay, I've answered all of those before. Right, so I'm gonna wrap this up. Now, actually, there's nothing wrong with it. One side says destined to achieve legacy, which is great. I think, yeah, awesome. Destined to. And the other side says resist all except temptation. That's my, you know, that goes in line with my hashtag, what's life if not lived? So people, that's what this, but I just like the way these things look. So anyway, people, I'm going to leave you with that. If you haven't already liked my Facebook, I've got two Facebook pages, obviously my public and the private one. Both of them, like them both. Add me, follow me. Any questions, reach out to me. And inshallah, I will try to get back to you. I'm on Snapchat as well, Malm 2014, MALM 2014. Inshallah, reach out to me. I do try to get back to people whenever I can. Other than that, inshallah, remember me in your du'as. Right, inshallah, spread peace, people. We need more peace and love in the world. We need to eradicate hate. Till next week, take very good care of yourselves, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.